The rain in Chicago was coming down in thick, heavy sheets. It beat against the windshield of the black Bentley like angry fists trying to break the glass. Inside the car, the heater was turned up high, blowing warm air that smelled like expensive leather and strong cologne. Young Se-jin gripped the steering wheel. His knuckles were totally white. He stared straight ahead at the red traffic light, trying his hardest to block out the sound of the woman sitting next to him. Chloe Park was his fiancée. She was also the daughter of a billionaire real estate boss. She had been talking for 20 minutes straight about the flowers for their wedding. She wanted white roses imported from France. She hated the pink ones they saw today. Se-jin did not give a shit about the roses. He just nodded and made soft noises in his throat so she would think he was listening. He hated her whining voice, but he loved her father's bank account. Se-jin grew up with nothing. He ate scraps. He wore shoes with holes in the bottom. He worked his ass off to become a top criminal defense attorney, and marrying Chloe was his final step. Once he put that ring on her finger, he would never have to worry about money again. He would be untouchable. The windshield wipers slapped back and forth. The street in front of them was dark and empty because of the storm. Then, a shadow moved. Someone stepped off the curb and walked right into the middle of the crosswalk. Se-jin frowned and leaned forward. The headlights of the Bentley shined on the person. It was a woman. She did not have an umbrella or a coat. She was just wearing a thin white t-shirt and gray sweatpants. Her dark natural hair was completely soaked and flattened to her head. She was shaking so hard that Se-jin could see her shoulders jerking up and down from inside the car. She stopped right in the middle of the street and looked around wildly, like a trapped animal. Se-jin felt all the air leave his lungs. His heart stopped beating for a full second. It was Seun. He had not seen her face in 2 long years. He left her because she was broken. She was completely agoraphobic. She was terrified of the outside world. She never left her small, dirty apartment. She could not even walk down the hallway to check the mail without having a total panic attack. So what the fuck was she doing standing in the middle of a busy Chicago street in the freezing rain? Then, the Bentley's headlights caught something else. Seun's hands were covered in a thick, dark liquid. Even in the rain, Se-jin knew exactly what it was. It was blood. And in her right hand, she was gripping a heavy metal pipe wrench. The blood was dripping off the metal and washing away into the puddles around her bare feet. If you don't hit that subscribe button for Afro-Korean Love FM right now, you might leave Seun to get arrested and rot in a cold jail cell alone. The cops are definitely going to find her standing in the street like this. Don't be the reason she loses all hope and goes to prison forever. Please leave a like if you're enjoying the video. It really helps the algorithm push more dark and gritty stories like this to you. Also, let us know in the comments down below, where are you watching from tonight? Now back to the story. What the hell is wrong with that crazy bitch? Chloe said. She leaned closer to the window, pulling her expensive fur coat tight around her chest. She's going to get hit by a car. Honk the horn, Se-jin. Tell the dirty crackhead to move. Se-jin did not touch the horn. He could not move. His brain was spinning in 100 different directions. He was a lawyer. He knew exactly what this looked like. Seun had hurt someone. Maybe she killed someone. She was standing in public holding the murder weapon. If he got out of the car and helped her, he would be an accessory after the fact. He would lose his law license. He would lose his job. He would lose Chloe and the billions of dollars waiting for him at the wedding altar. All he had to do was press the gas pedal when the light turned green. He could drive away. He could pretend he never saw her. Seun slowly turned her head. Her big, terrified brown eyes locked right onto the Bentley. She could not see inside because the windows were tinted, but she stared right at the car. She looked so small, so totally broken. Se-jin, Chloe yelled, her voice sharp and annoying. The light is green, drive the damn car. Shut the fuck up, Chloe, Se-jin snapped. Chloe gasped loudly. Excuse me, what did you just say to me? Se-jin didn't answer her. He slammed his hand on the gear shift and threw the car into park. The transmission made a loud clicking sound. He ripped his seatbelt off. What are you doing? Chloe screamed. Are you insane? You are going to ruin your suit. We have dinner with the mayor in 20 minutes. Se-jin pushed the car door open. The freezing rain hit his face instantly. The wind howled in his ears. He stepped out of the warm car and into the deep puddle on the street. His $3,000 leather shoes soaked through in 2 seconds. He slammed the car door shut, cutting off the sound of Chloe screaming his name. He ran to the front of the car. Seun, he yelled over the sound of the storm. Seun jumped backward. She raised the bloody wrench in the air, ready to swing it at him. Her chest was heaving up and down. She was hyperventilating. She looked around at the tall buildings reaching up into the dark sky. The wide open space was crushing her mind. Seun, look at me, Se-jin said. He stopped a few feet away from her and held his hands up, showing he had no weapons. It's me, it's Se-jin. She blinked hard. The rain was running down her face, mixing with her tears. She lowered the wrench just a little bit. Se-jin, she whispered. Her voice was cracked and weak. You're outside. Yes, I'm outside, he said. He took one step closer. You are outside too. Why are you outside, Seun? You never come outside. She looked down at her bloody hands. A loud sob ripped out of her throat. I didn't want to come out here. The sky is too big. The buildings are going to fall on me. Se-jin, the buildings are falling? She covered her head with her left arm and dropped to her knees right there in the street. Cars were starting to line up behind the Bentley. Someone honked a loud horn. Se-jin cursed under his breath. He stepped forward and grabbed her by the arms. Her skin was freezing cold. Get up. Seun, you have to get up right now. You can't stay in the street. I killed him, she cried. She did not try to stand up. She just let her head fall against his stomach. He came inside. My door was locked, but he had a key. He smiled at me. He said I couldn't run away because I'm too scared of the hallway. Who? Se-jin asked. He looked around. A few people on the sidewalk were stopping to point at them. This was bad. This was really damn bad. Who came inside, Seun? The building manager, she sobbed. Mr. Davis. He took off his belt. He tried to grab me. I picked up the tool from the sink. I hit him. I hit him so many times until he stopped moving. There was so much blood on my rug. I had to run. I had to get out. Se-jin's legal mind was working extremely fast. Self-defense. It was a clear case of self-defense, but she ran away. Fleeing the scene made her look guilty, and she was holding the weapon. The cops would tear her apart. They would throw her in a cell, a small, crowded cell. A girl who was terrified of her own shadow would not last 2 days in lockup. She would kill herself. Okay, Se-jin said. His voice was hard and cold. Okay, listen to me. Drop the wrench. No, she whimpered, gripping it tighter. He might wake up. He might come after me. Drop the fucking wrench, Seun, Se-jin yelled. Seun flinched. Her fingers opened. The heavy metal wrench fell to the wet pavement with a loud clang. Se-jin ripped his silk tie off his neck. He wrapped the tie around his hand so he would not leave his fingerprints on the metal. He picked up the wrench. He shoved it deep into the inside pocket of his suit jacket. Now he was holding the murder weapon. He just crossed a line he could never uncross. He was officially a criminal. Get up, he ordered. He pulled her hard by the arm, forcing her to stand on her feet. Behind them, the passenger door of the Bentley opened. Chloe stepped out holding a large black umbrella. She was wearing her high heels. She looked furious. Young Se-jin, she shrieked. Get back in this car right now. Who is this dirty whore? Seun shrank away from the loud noise. She tried to hide behind Se-jin's back. Se-jin turned his head to look at Chloe. He felt nothing but pure disgust. He wanted her money, but he hated her soul. Get back in the car, Chloe. Drive yourself to the dinner. Chloe stomped her foot in the puddle. Water splashed onto her designer dress. Are you joking? I am not driving myself. You are my fiancé. You are going to leave this trash on the street and get in the car. She pointed a perfectly manicured finger at Seun. Wait a minute. I know that ugly hair. Is that the pathetic loser you dated before me? The crazy one who can't leave her house? Shut your mouth, Se-jin growled. He took a step toward Chloe. His eyes were dark and dangerous. Do not say another word about her. Chloe's mouth dropped open. You are defending her. Over me. My father bought you that suit. My father bought you that car. If you don't get in that car right now, the wedding is off. Do you hear me? You will be nothing again. You will be poor and homeless just like her. Se-jin stopped moving. He stared at Chloe. He thought about the giant house they were supposed to buy next month. He thought about his corner office at the law firm. He thought about never having to check the price on a dinner menu ever again. All of it was slipping through his fingers right in front of his eyes. He felt Seun's cold, bloody fingers wrap around his hand. She squeezed his fingers tight. Se-jin, she whispered, her teeth chattering. Please, I'm so scared. The sky is too open. Please hide me. He looked down at Seun. She was ruined. She was a mess. She had nothing to offer him except problems and danger. But she was the only person who ever looked at him like he was a king, even when he had nothing in his pockets. Se-jin looked back at Chloe. Keep the car, he said, and tell your father he can go to hell. Chloe screamed in rage. She threw her umbrella on the ground. I am calling the police. I am telling them you are out here with this crazy murderer. Call them, Se-jin sneered. I know all your father's dirty secrets. I know about the bribes he paid to the zoning board last year. If you call the cops on me, I will send your father to federal prison for 10 years. Get in the car and drive away, Chloe. Now. Chloe turned pale. She knew he wasn't lying. She backed up, got into the Bentley, and slammed the door. A second later, the car sped away, splashing dirty water all over Se-jin's legs. He was alone in the street with Seun. The rain was falling harder. Come on, Se-jin said softly. He took off his expensive suit jacket and wrapped it around Seun's shaking shoulders. The wrench was still heavy in the pocket. We need to get off the street. Walk with me. Just look at my chest. Don't look at the sky. Don't look at the buildings. Just look at me. Where are we going? She asked. She kept her eyes glued to the white buttons on his shirt. I have an old friend who owes me a favor, Se-jin said. He put his arm around her waist and pulled her tight against his side. He runs a motel on the south side. No cameras, no questions. We go there, we clean you up, and then we figure out how to hide a dead body. They started walking quickly down the sidewalk. Se-jin kept his head down. He was throwing away his entire life. He was throwing away millions of dollars. He was risking a prison sentence. And for what? For a girl who could not even walk to a grocery store. He told himself he was an idiot. He told himself he was making the biggest mistake of his life. But as he held her close, feeling her heart beating fast against his side, he knew he didn't care. She belonged to him, and he was not going to let anyone lock her in a cage. They turned the corner into a dark alley. The smell of wet garbage filled the air. Se-jin pulled out his cell phone to call a burner cab. He wiped the rain off the screen with his thumb. Se-jin, Seun whispered in the dark alley, what if he isn't dead? Se-jin stopped dialing. He looked at her. What do you mean? I hit him hard, she said, her voice shaking. But when I ran out of the apartment, I heard a noise, like coughing. What if he is still alive? What if he calls the police and tells them my name? Se-jin stared into the dark alley. The rain dripped off his nose. If the building manager was still alive, everything changed. If the man lived, he would talk. Seun would be arrested by morning. There was no defense for trying to run away. Give me your keys, Se-jin said. His voice sounded like gravel. Seun reached into her sweatpants pocket. She pulled out a single silver key attached to a cheap plastic ring. She handed it to him. Her fingers brushed against his. Why do you need my key? Se-jin looked at the key in his palm. He squeezed his hand shut. If he is alive, he is going to talk to the police. I can't let him do that. I am going to your apartment. No, Seun cried. She grabbed his arm. No, you can't go back there. It's dangerous. What if he has a gun? What if he hurts you? I am a lawyer, Seun. I don't get hurt, he lied. He reached into the pocket of the jacket he gave her and pulled out the heavy, bloody wrench. He gripped the handle tight. I need you to wait right here in this alley. Do not move. Do not look up at the sky. Just sit against the wall and wait for me. What are you going to do? She asked. Tears were streaming down her face. Se-jin wiped a tear off her cheek with his thumb. I am going to fix this. I am going to make sure nobody ever comes looking for you. He turned around and started walking fast out of the alley, heading straight back toward her apartment building in the pouring rain. The cold rain felt like tiny needles hitting Se-jin's face as he walked away from the dark alley. His $3,000 suit was completely ruined. The expensive Italian wool was heavy and soaked with dirty city water. His leather shoes squeaked against the pavement with every single step. He kept his right hand deep inside his pocket, wrapping his fingers tight around the heavy metal wrench. The wrench was still slick with fresh blood. He could feel the sticky wetness rubbing against his own skin. He hated it. He hated the dirt, he hated the cold, and he hated this cheap, broken-down neighborhood. But most of all, he hated that he was walking back toward danger, instead of riding in a warm Bentley with his billionaire fiancée. He was a lawyer. He spent his entire life learning the law so he could twist it, bend it, and use it to get rich. He knew exactly what the penalty was for tampering with evidence. He knew what the penalty was for hiding a fugitive. And if he was about to do what he thought he was going to do, he knew the penalty for murder. It was a life sentence. No parole, just a tiny concrete box until the day he died. Se-jin stopped at the corner of the street and looked up at Seun's apartment building. It was a tall, ugly brick building with fire escapes rusting on the sides. Half of the streetlights were burned out. The sidewalk was covered in wet trash and broken glass. This was where she lived for the last 2 years. This was where she hid from the world because she was too damn scared to step outside. He pulled the cheap silver key out of his pocket. He stared at it for a long second. If he turned around right now, he could still call a cab. He could go to the mayor's dinner. He could beg Chloe to forgive him. He could tell her he just had a moment of temporary insanity. He could still have the money, the big house, and the safe life. Then he thought about Seun shaking in the alley. He thought about her terrified brown eyes looking up at him like he was the only safe place in the whole world. "Fuck the money," Se-jin muttered out loud. He walked fast across the street and stepped up to the front door of the building. The glass on the door was cracked in a spiderweb shape. There was a keypad for a security code, but the wires were pulled out and hanging loose. Se-jin didn't even need the key for the front door. He just pulled the handle and the door popped open with a loud groan. He stepped inside the lobby. It smelled like stale cigarettes, cheap beer, and old garbage. The heater in the corner was making a loud banging noise, but it was not pushing out any warm air. Se-jin wiped the rain out of his eyes and looked down at the dirty tile floor. Right there, near the bottom of the stairs, was a single drop of dark red blood. Se-jin felt his stomach tighten. He stepped over the blood and started walking up the stairs. The stairs were covered in a nasty green carpet that squished under his wet shoes. He kept his hand in his pocket, holding the wrench. The hallway lights flickered on and off, making a buzzing sound like a dying bug. He reached the 3rd floor. The hallway was completely empty, but he could hear a television playing loudly from behind one of the doors. Someone was watching a late-night game show. Se-jin ignored it and walked down the narrow hall toward apartment 3B. He found more blood on the floor, small red drops leading straight to her door. Seun's door was painted a ugly mustard yellow color. It was completely covered in thick steel locks. She had a deadbolt, a chain lock, and a sliding latch. But right now, the door was cracked open about 2 inches. The wood around the door frame was splintered and broken. Someone had forced their way inside. Se-jin pushed the door open slowly. It squeaked on its hinges. "Seun," a voice groaned from inside the dark room. "You crazy bitch, you come back here." Se-jin froze. His heart slammed against his ribs. The building manager was alive. Seun was right. Se-jin stepped inside the apartment and closed the door behind him with a soft click. He locked the deadbolt. The apartment was tiny. It was basically just one room with a small kitchen in the corner and a bed pushed against the wall. But it was filled with plants. Seun had dozens of green plants in pots everywhere. She brought the outside world inside because she was too scared to go out. Now, half of the pots were knocked over. Dark soil was spilled all over the cheap wooden floor. A small lamp was laying on its side, casting a weird shadow across the room. In the middle of the room, laying on a cheap pink rug, was a large, fat man. It was Mr. Davis, the building manager. He was wearing dirty blue jeans and a gray work shirt. His belt was unbuckled and his zipper was pulled down. Se-jin felt a hot wave of pure, violent rage hit his brain. This fat piece of shit tried to hurt her. He unlocked her door, walked into her safe space, and tried to take what he wanted. Mr. Davis was laying on his stomach. He was trying to push himself up on his hands and knees, but his arms kept shaking. The back of his head was a bloody, messy pulp. Seun had hit him hard. Blood was pouring down his thick neck and soaking into the collar of his gray shirt. The pink rug beneath him was stained dark red. Davis heard the door lock. He slowly turned his head, groaning in deep pain. He spit a mouthful of blood onto the floor. "You," he rasped. His eyes were unfocused and wild. "You're not her." Se-jin walked slowly across the room. He stopped right in front of the man. He looked down at him with cold, dead eyes. "No, I'm not her." Davis coughed, a wet, sickening sound. "Who the fuck are you? Where's that crazy black bitch?" Se-jin kicked him. He swung his heavy, wet leather shoe as hard as he could and kicked Davis straight in the ribs. Davis screamed. The sound was loud and piercing. He collapsed back onto the bloody rug, grabbing his side. "Oh my God, what the fuck is wrong with you?" "Keep your voice down," Se-jin said. His tone was perfectly calm, like he was arguing a boring case in front of a judge. "The walls in this cheap building are very thin. You do not want the neighbors to hear you screaming." "I'm calling the cops," Davis yelled, his voice cracking. He reached a bloody hand into his pants pocket and tried to pull out his cell phone. "She tried to kill me. I came in here to fix the sink and she went totally crazy. She bashed my head in with a tool. I'm going to put her in a cage for the rest of her life." Se-jin stepped on the man's wrist. He pressed his entire body weight down on his foot. The bones in Davis's wrist made a loud popping sound. Davis shrieked in agony and let go of the phone. "Stop, stop, you're breaking it." "You came in here to fix the sink?" Se-jin asked. He leaned down slightly, resting his hands on his knees. "Is that why your pants are unzipped, Mr. Davis? Is that why your belt is off? Do you fix sinks with your dick?" Davis stared up at Se-jin. Fear finally started to replace the anger in his eyes. He realized he was not talking to a normal person. He was talking to a man who had no problem hurting him. I don't know what you're talking about. The belt just broke." "Listen, man, you don't want to do this. I'm bleeding really bad. I need an ambulance." "You are going to tell the police she attacked you for no reason," Se-jin said flatly. He ignored the man's begging. He was just laying out the facts. "You are going to lie. And because she ran away, the police will believe you. They will look at her, they will look at this apartment, and they will think she is a crazy, violent woman." "I won't say anything," Davis cried out. Blood bubbled at the corners of his mouth. "I swear to God, man, let me go to the hospital and I won't say a damn word to the cops. Just let me live." Se-jin stood up straight. He looked around the small apartment. He looked at the spilled dirt. He looked at the unmade bed where Seun used to sleep. He remembered how she used to smell like vanilla and clean laundry. He remembered how soft her skin was before the panic attacks ruined her life. He loved her. He never stopped loving her. He just left her because he was greedy and wanted an easy life with Chloe. Now he was paying the price for his greed. "I am a lawyer, Mr. Davis," Se-jin said softly. The sound of the rain hitting the window filled the quiet room. "I know how the system works. I know that people always talk. You are scared right now, so you are making promises. But tomorrow, when you are safe in a hospital bed with a bandage on your head, you will get angry. You will want revenge. You will call a detective. You will ruin her life." "No, I swear I won't," Davis sobbed. He tried to crawl backward away from Se-jin, dragging his bloody body across the rug. "Please, I have a family." "You should have thought about your family before you forced your way into a woman's apartment," Se-jin said. He reached into his wet suit jacket. He pulled out the heavy metal pipe wrench. He still had his silk tie wrapped tight around his hand so he wouldn't leave any fingerprints. The wrench was already coated in Davis's blood. Davis saw the weapon. His eyes went wide with pure terror. "No, help, somebody help me." Se-jin didn't hesitate. He didn't think about his career. He didn't think about his law degree. He didn't think about his fancy corner office or the wedding he was supposed to have next month. He only thought about Seun shaking in the cold alley, waiting for him to save her. Se-jin stepped forward and swung the heavy metal wrench down with all his strength. There was a sickening crunch as the metal hit the back of Davis's skull. The man's body jerked violently on the floor like he had been struck by lightning. His hands reached out, clawing at the pink rug. Se-jin raised the wrench again. His breathing was heavy and loud in the quiet room. His heart was hammering in his chest, pumping pure adrenaline through his veins. He swung it down a second time, and then a third time. He hit the man until the terrible groaning noises completely stopped. He hit him until the body went totally limp and still on the floor. Se-jin stood over the dead body, chest heaving up and down. His arm was tired. He stared at the mess he just made. Blood had splashed onto the toes of his expensive shoes. It splashed onto the cuffs of his white dress shirt. He was a murderer. It was a cold, hard fact. He just crossed a line that he could never come back from. But as he looked at the dead man who tried to hurt his woman, Se-jin didn't feel any guilt. He didn't feel sorry. He just felt relieved. Nobody was going to talk to the police. Nobody was going to put Seun in a cage. Okay, Se-jin whispered to himself, trying to slow his breathing down. Okay, you have to think like a criminal now. He wiped the bloody wrench on the man's gray work shirt, trying to clean off the worst of the mess. He wrapped it up tightly in his silk tie and shoved it deep into the pocket of his wetsuit jacket again. He needed to clean the room, but he didn't have time right now. Seun was out there in the alley alone. She was terrified of the dark and the rain. If he left her out there too long, she might have a total mental breakdown. She might run out into the street and get hit by a car, or worse, get picked up by a police patrol car. He had to get her somewhere safe first. Then he could come back here and figure out how to get rid of a 200-pound bleeding corpse. Se-jin walked into the tiny kitchen area. He found a roll of cheap paper towels sitting on the counter. He grabbed a handful and walked over to the front door. He used the paper towels to wipe down the deadbolt and the doorknob, wiping away any trace of his own touch. Before he left, he looked around the room one last time. He saw a small, framed photograph sitting on a dusty table near the bed. It was a picture of him and Seun from 3 years ago. They were sitting in a park on a sunny day. Seun was smiling, her natural hair blowing in the wind. She looked so happy and free. It was before the fear took over her mind. It was before he broke her heart. Se-jin grabbed the picture frame and shoved it inside his shirt to protect it from the rain. He opened the apartment door and stepped out into the hallway. He pulled the door shut behind him, making sure it clicked locked. He walked quickly down the dark hallway, down the squishy green stairs, and out the broken front door. The freezing rain was still falling hard on the Chicago streets. The wind pushed against his back as he ran across the empty road and headed straight for the dark alley where he left her. The heavy rain pounded against Se-jin's back as he ran across the street. His wet leather shoes slipped on the slick pavement, but he did not slow down. He felt like a ghost moving through the dark city. Nobody was outside. The storm was keeping everyone inside their warm, safe homes. Se-jin was the only person stupid enough to be out here, and he was a murderer now. The heavy pipe wrench bounced against his ribs inside his jacket pocket with every step he took. It was a cold reminder of what he had just done in that tiny apartment. He reached the opening of the dark alley. The streetlight at the corner was flickering, throwing crazy shadows against the brick walls. Se-jin stopped and wiped the dirty water out of his eyes. He looked down the alley. It was pitch black. The smell of wet garbage and rotting food hit his nose. "Seun," he called out. His voice was hoarse. Nobody answered. The only sound was the wind howling and the rain splashing into deep puddles. Panic hit Se-jin right in the chest. What if she ran away? What if a police car drove by and she got scared and turned herself in? What if another man found her shaking in the dark? He walked faster into the alley, his heart beating loud in his ears. "Seun," he yelled louder. "Answer me, where are you?" A loud crash came from the back of the alley. A metal trash can tipped over, spilling empty beer bottles onto the concrete. Se-jin ran toward the noise. He reached his hand into his pocket and grabbed the handle of the bloody wrench, ready to pull it out and swing it again. He was already going to hell. One more body would not make a difference. He ran behind a large green dumpster and stopped. Seun was sitting on the wet ground. She had her knees pulled up tight to her chest, and she was wrapping her arms around her head. She was rocking back and forth in the dirty water. The suit jacket he gave her was covered in mud. She was crying so hard she was choking on her own breath. Se-jin let go of the wrench. He dropped to his knees right in the puddle in front of her. "I'm here," he said, reaching out to grab her shoulders. "Seun, I am right here. Look at me." She flinched violently when he touched her. She peeked through her fingers. When she saw his face, she let out a loud, broken sob and threw her arms around his neck. She buried her wet face into his chest. Her whole body was freezing cold. She was shaking so hard her teeth were clicking together. "The sky is too loud," she cried into his wet shirt. "The buildings are looking at me, Se-jin. They are going to fall down and crush me. Please make it stop. Please take me inside." "I know, baby, I know," Se-jin whispered. He wrapped his arms tightly around her wet back. He could feel her ribs shaking. "I am going to take you inside right now. You just have to be brave for 5 more minutes." She pulled her head back and looked up at him. The rain washed the tears down her face. Her big brown eyes searched his eyes in the dark. "Did you go to my room? Did you find him?" Se-jin looked right into her eyes. He was the best liar in the city of Chicago. He lied to judges. He lied to juries. He lied to his billionaire fiancée every single day. Lying to a broken girl in an alley was easy. "I went to your room," he said, his voice completely steady and calm. "He was gone, Seun. The apartment was empty." "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice shaking. "I hit him so hard, there was so much blood." "I am completely sure," Se-jin lied. He reached up and wiped a wet piece of hair out of her eyes. "He woke up and ran away. He knows what he did was illegal. He is not going to call the police. He is going to hide because he knows I will send him to prison for trying to touch you. You are safe. Nobody is looking for you." Seun let out a long, shaky breath. Her shoulders dropped just a little bit. She believed him. She always believed him. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." "We need to go," Se-jin said. He grabbed her hands and pulled her up from the wet ground. "My friend is waiting for us." Se-jin pulled his burner phone out of his pants pocket. He always kept two phones, one for his real life with Chloe and the law firm, and one for the dirty clients who paid him in cash. He pressed a button and called a private cab service that did not ask questions. He told them the cross street and hung up. 5 minutes later, a black town car pulled up to the curb at the end of the alley. The headlights cut through the heavy rain. "Keep your head down," Se-jin ordered. He put his arm around Seun's waist and walked her fast out of the alley. He opened the back door of the car and pushed her inside. He climbed in right after her and slammed the heavy door shut. The inside of the car was dark and warm. The heater was blasting hot air that smelled like fake pine trees and old cigarette smoke. The driver was a large man with a thick neck and a bald head. He looked in the rearview mirror at them. "You guys are soaking wet. You're going to ruin my leather seats, man. That's an extra cleaning fee." "Shut up and drive to the Starlight Motel on 43rd Street, Se-jin snapped. He reached into his wet pants pocket, pulled out his expensive leather wallet, and grabbed a wet $100 bill. He threw the money into the front seat. It landed right on the center console. "There is your cleaning fee. Turn off the interior lights and drive." The driver looked at the money, grunted, and put the car in drive. The car pulled away from the curb and joined the slow traffic on the rainy street. The windshield wipers made a steady squeaking noise. Se-jin leaned back against the seat and let out a long breath. His muscles felt like they were made of heavy lead. His adrenaline was finally starting to crash, and his body was feeling the pain of kicking and hitting a man to death. His right hand was cramping. Seun slid across the seat and pressed her body tight against his side. She was still wearing his muddy suit jacket. She hid her face against his shoulder and closed her eyes. She was trying to pretend she was not in a moving car. She was trying to pretend the outside world did not exist. Se-jin wrapped his arm around her. He rested his chin on the top of her wet hair. He looked out the window at the blurry streetlights passing by. He wondered what Chloe was doing right now. She was probably sitting at a fancy restaurant with the mayor, drinking expensive champagne, telling everyone that her fiancé had a sudden work emergency. Tomorrow, she would call him and scream at him. She would demand an apology. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his real phone. The screen lit up the dark backseat. He had 14 missed calls from Chloe. He had 5 missed calls from her billionaire father. He had 3 text messages telling him he was a dead man. Se-jin stared at the screen. He held his thumb over the power button. If he turned the phone off, he was choosing a new life. He was throwing away his law career. He was throwing away the fancy house and the nice suits. He was choosing the girl shivering against his chest. He pressed the button down. The screen went totally black. The drive to the south side took 30 minutes because of the heavy storm. The shiny glass buildings of downtown disappeared. The streets got darker. The stores were closed and had thick metal bars over their windows. The black town car finally turned into a bumpy parking lot and stopped. "Starlight Motel," the driver said. "End of the line." Se-jin looked out the window. The motel was a long, ugly building painted a faded blue color. A big neon sign was buzzing loudly on the roof. Half of the letters were burned out. It looked like a place where people went to do drugs or hide from the cops. It was perfect. "Wait here for 1 minute," Se-jin told Seun. "Do not open the door. I am going to get us a room." Seun grabbed his wet shirt. Her eyes went wide. "Don't leave me in the car, please. The driver is looking at me." Se-jin glared at the back of the driver's bald head. "If you look at her again, I will break your nose." The driver put his hands up in the air. "Hey man, I ain't looking at nobody, just get out of my car." "I will be right back," Se-jin promised her. He pushed the door open and stepped back out into the freezing rain. He ran across the parking lot and pushed open the heavy glass door of the motel lobby. It smelled like cheap bleach and old coffee. A small bell rang loudly when the door closed behind him. The lobby was tiny. There was a counter covered in thick, bulletproof glass. Behind the glass, a skinny man with tattoos all over his neck was sitting in a cheap office chair, watching a small television. He looked up when Se-jin walked in. "We are full," the man said, pointing a dirty finger at a sign on the glass. "Hello, Marcus," Se-jin said, walking right up to the glass. Marcus blinked hard. He leaned forward and squinted through the dirty glass. "Mr. Young, is that you? Holy shit, man, what happened to you? You look like you went swimming in a garbage can." Marcus was a low-level drug dealer. 2 years ago, he got caught with a trunk full of illegal pills. He was looking at 20 years in a federal prison. Se-jin took his case. Se-jin found a tiny mistake in the police report and got the entire case thrown out by the judge. Marcus walked out of the courtroom a free man. He told Se-jin he owed him his life. "I need a room, Marcus," Se-jin said. His voice was hard. "I need the room at the very back of the building, and I need you to forget that I was ever here." Marcus looked at Se-jin's ruined suit. He saw the dark stains on the cuffs of Se-jin's white shirt. Marcus was a street guy. He knew what dried blood looked like. He swallowed hard. "Sure thing, Mr. Young," Marcus said quickly. He opened a drawer and pulled out a brass key attached to a big piece of red plastic. He slid it through the small hole in the bulletproof glass. "Room 114. It's around the back. No cameras back there. The heat works good." "How much?" Se-jin asked, reaching for his wallet. "Nothing," Marcus said, waving his hands. "You saved my life, remember? You stay as long as you need. I didn't see nothing. I don't know nothing." Se-jin grabbed the key. "Thank you." He turned around and walked back out into the storm. The town car was still sitting there with its lights on. Se-jin walked up to the back door and opened it. "Come on," he said, reaching his hand inside. Seun grabbed his hand tight. She scrambled out of the car. Her bare feet splashed into a cold puddle on the pavement. She gasped and pressed herself against him. Se-jin slammed the car door shut with his hip. The town car immediately drove away, splashing water all over their legs. "Walk fast," Se-jin said. He kept his arm around her and guided her around the side of the ugly blue building. The rain was finally starting to slow down, but the wind was still biting cold. They walked past a row of cheap wooden doors until they reached the very end. Room 114. Se-jin put the brass key in the lock and turned it. The door pushed open. He pulled her inside and quickly shut the door behind them. He locked the deadbolt and slid the security chain into place. The room was dark and smelled like cheap cigarettes and stale air. Se-jin reached out and flipped the light switch. A yellow bulb flickered to life on the ceiling. The room had 2 small beds covered in ugly brown blankets. There was a cheap wooden dresser with a small television sitting on top of it. In the corner, there was a tiny bathroom with a dirty mirror. It was a terrible place, but to Se-jin, it felt like a safe castle. Seun stood in the middle of the room. She was dripping wet. The heavy suit jacket was hanging off her shoulders, making her look incredibly small. She looked around the tight walls and the low ceiling. She let out a soft sigh of relief. The room was small. It was enclosed. It was exactly what her broken brain needed. "Take the jacket off," Se-jin said softly. "It is freezing." Seun slowly pulled the wet suit jacket off her shoulders. It dropped to the dirty carpet with a heavy, wet smack. She stood there in her thin white t-shirt and gray sweatpants. Both pieces of clothing were completely soaked through. The white t-shirt was clinging tight to her dark brown skin. She wrapped her arms around her chest, still shaking from the cold. Se-jin walked over to the bathroom. He turned on the shower. He twisted the hot water knob all the way to the right. A few seconds later, steam started to fill the small room. "Go get in," Se-jin said. He grabbed a cheap, thin white towel off the rack and set it on the sink. "You need to get warm before you get sick." Seun looked at the bathroom, then she looked at Se-jin. She pointed down at her hands. The blood was mostly washed away by the rain, but her fingernails were still stained dark red. "I can't get the smell off," she whispered. Her voice was full of pain. "I can still smell the blood." Se-jin felt a sharp pain in his chest. He hated seeing her like this. He walked over to her. He didn't care that he was wet and dirty. He reached out and grabbed her hands. He held them tight in his own. "I will wash them for you," he said. He looked deep into her sad brown eyes. "I will wash everything away, Seun, I promise you." He led her gently into the small bathroom. The steam felt amazing against his freezing skin. He closed the bathroom door behind them to trap the heat inside. The small bathroom was completely filled with thick white steam. It smelled like cheap bleach and old metal pipes, but the heat was exactly what they needed. Se-jin closed the door until it clicked, trapping the warm air inside. He turned to look at Seun. She was standing in the middle of the tiny room, staring blankly at the dirty white sink. She was shivering so hard her teeth made a loud, steady clicking sound. Se-jin needed to hide the evidence. He took his ruined suit jacket off his shoulders. He rolled it up into a tight ball, making sure the heavy, bloody wrench was hidden deep inside the wet fabric. He threw the jacket into the far corner of the bathroom floor. He would clean that later. Right now, he only cared about the woman standing in front of him. "Give me your hands," he said softly. Seun slowly lifted her arms. Her hands were shaking violently. The rain had washed away most of the dark red blood, but there were still brown stains around her fingernails and deep in the lines of her palms. She stared at her own fingers like they were disgusting monsters. "I can still smell it," she whispered, her voice cracking. Tears started falling down her face again, mixing with the rainwater on her cheeks. "I smell the metal, I smell the dirt." "I know," Se-jin said. He stepped up right behind her and reached around her waist. He turned on the sink. He twisted the hot water knob and the cold water knob until the water was perfectly warm. He grabbed a small, cheap bar of white motel soap from a plastic wrapper. He took her small, cold hands in his large hands. He pushed their hands under the running water. Seun gasped when the warm water hit her freezing skin. She tried to pull back, but Se-jin held her wrists tight. "Look at the water, Seun," he ordered gently. "Just watch the water go down the drain." He rubbed the cheap bar of soap between his palms until there was a lot of thick, white bubbles. Then, he slowly started to wash her hands. He rubbed his thumbs over her knuckles. He cleaned between every single one of her fingers. He used his own fingernails to gently scrape the dried blood out from under her nails. The water in the sink turned a very light shade of pink for just a few seconds. The last bits of Mr. Davis's blood washed off her skin and swirled down the dark metal drain. Se-jin watched the pink water disappear. He knew he was the only reason that fat piece of shit was never going to hurt anyone ever again. He did not feel an ounce of guilt. He just felt a deep, dark satisfaction. "See," Se-jin said softly, his chest pressing against her wet back. "It's gone. The blood is completely gone. You are clean." Seun let out a long, shaky breath. She leaned her head back against his chest. Her wet hair soaked right through his white dress shirt, but he did not care. "I was so scared, Se-jin. When he unlocked my door, I thought I was going to die. I couldn't breathe." "Nobody is ever going to unlock your door again," Se-jin promised. He rinsed the last of the soap off her hands. He reached over and grabbed the thin, white motel towel. He dried her hands very carefully, pressing the towel gently against her skin. "I am going to keep you safe." He dropped the towel on the edge of the sink. He looked at her in the dirty mirror above the sink. Her white t-shirt and gray sweatpants were totally soaked. They were clinging tight to her body. Her lips were a light shade of blue from the freezing rain. "You need to take those wet clothes off," Se-jin said. He turned her around so she was facing him. "If you stay in those clothes, you are going to get sick. You will get a fever." Seun crossed her arms over her chest. She looked down at the dirty bathroom floor. "I don't have any dry clothes. I left everything in my room." Se-jin looked down at his own clothes. His expensive white dress shirt was ruined. The cuffs had dark red blood stains from when he beat the building manager to death. He could not let Seun see those stains. If she saw the fresh blood, she would know he lied to her in the alley. She would know the man did not run away. "Turn around," Se-jin said. She frowned but slowly turned her back to him. Se-jin quickly unbuttoned his wet dress shirt. He pulled it off his shoulders and threw it into the corner right on top of his suit jacket, hiding the bloody cuffs. Underneath, he was wearing a plain white cotton undershirt. It was completely dry because his suit jacket and dress shirt had protected it from the rain. He pulled the undershirt over his head. The cold air in the bathroom hit his bare chest. "Here," Se-jin said. He handed her the dry white shirt. "Put this on. Give me your wet clothes." Seun took the shirt. Her hands were still shaking. She looked at him with big, nervous eyes. "Don't look." "I have seen your body 100 times, Seun," Se-jin said quietly. His voice was low and deep. "But I will turn around." He turned his back to her and faced the mirror. He heard the wet, slapping sound of her peeling the soaked t-shirt off her skin. He heard her heavy breathing. He closed his eyes. He remembered exactly what she looked like naked. He remembered how her dark skin used to glow in the morning light when they lived together. He remembered how she used to straddle his lap and kiss his neck before he went to law school classes. That was before the panic attacks started, before the world outside her window became a terrifying nightmare. He left her when she got sick because he was a selfish prick who wanted money more than love. Now, he was standing half naked in a cheap motel bathroom, trying to save her life. "Okay," Seun whispered. Se-jin turned around. She was wearing his white undershirt. It was way too big for her. The bottom of the shirt reached all the way down to her thighs. She had taken off her wet sweatpants and underwear. She stood there hugging herself, looking small and fragile. She handed him a pile of soaking wet clothes. Se-jin threw her wet clothes into the empty bathtub. "Let's go into the main room. You need to sleep." He opened the bathroom door. The cold air from the bedroom rushed in and hit them. Seun gasped and hurried over to the bed closest to the wall. She climbed under the ugly brown blankets and pulled them all the way up to her chin. Se-jin walked over to the heavy curtains covering the window. He pulled the curtains tightly shut so nobody could look inside from the parking lot. He walked over to the door and checked the deadbolt and the metal security chain. Everything was locked tight. They were safe for now. He walked over to the bed and sat down on the very edge of the mattress. The springs creaked loudly under his weight. Seun was staring at him from under the blankets. Her brown eyes were wide awake. "Where are you going to sleep?" she asked. "I am not going to sleep," Se-jin said. He looked at his cell phone sitting on the cheap wooden nightstand. He had left his main phone turned off. He was only using his burner phone now. "I have to figure out our next move. We cannot stay at this motel forever." "Are the police looking for me?" she asked. Her voice was just a tiny whisper in the dark room. "If the manager ran away like you said, what if he went to a hospital? What if he told the doctors my name?" Se-jin felt a sharp twist in his gut. She was smart. Even with her broken brain, she was still a very smart girl. He had to be careful with his lies. "He did not go to a hospital," Se-jin said flatly. He leaned forward and rested his elbows on his knees. "I know guys like Davis. He has a criminal record. I represented guys just like him when I started out as a lawyer. If he goes to the hospital with a smashed head, the cops will ask questions. He does not want the cops looking into his life. He was trying to assault a woman in her own apartment. He is going to hide." Seun chewed on her bottom lip. She looked like she wanted to believe him, but the fear was still eating her alive. "Are you sure, Se-jin? Because if they find me, if they lock me in a jail cell, I will die. I can't be trapped in a cage with all those people. I will stop breathing." "Listen to me," Se-jin said. He reached out and put his hand on top of the blankets, right over her leg. He squeezed tight. "I am a defense attorney. I keep murderers and thieves out of prison every single day. Do you think I am going to let some lazy city cops take you away from me? Never. I would burn this whole damn city to the ground before I let anyone put handcuffs on you." Seun stared at him. A tiny, broken smile touched the corners of her mouth. "You left your rich girlfriend for me tonight." Se-jin scoffed. He thought about Chloe screaming in the rain, crying about her ruined designer dress. Chloe was a business deal. Her father had money, I wanted money. That was the whole relationship. But when I saw you standing in that crosswalk holding that bloody wrench, he stopped talking and shook his head. He looked down at his bare hands. "I realized all the money in the world didn't mean a single shit to me if you were dead." Seun reached a hand out from under the blankets. She placed her warm palm against his bare back. Her touch sent a jolt of electricity straight down his spine. "I missed you," she whispered softly. "Even when I hated you for leaving me alone, I missed you every day. Se-jin closed his eyes. The guilt hit him like a physical punch to the throat. He didn't deserve her. He was a monster. He just beat a man to death an hour ago and didn't even care. But he needed her just as much as she needed him. Go to sleep, Seun, he said roughly. He pulled the blankets up higher around her shoulders. You are safe here. Nobody knows where we are, just close your eyes. She nodded slowly. The heat from the shower and the soft bed were finally catching up to her. Her eyes fluttered closed. Her breathing slowed down. Within 5 minutes, she was completely asleep. Se-jin sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, just listening to her breathe. When he was absolutely sure she was asleep, he stood up quietly. He walked over to the bathroom. He opened the door and picked up his ruined suit jacket from the corner. He reached deep into the wet pocket and pulled out the heavy metal pipe wrench. He unwrapped his silk tie from the handle. The wrench was covered in a thick, sticky layer of Mr. Davis's blood. The blood was starting to dry, turning a dark, rusty brown color. Se-jin stared at it. This piece of metal was his ticket to a life sentence in a federal prison. He needed to get rid of it. But he also needed to get rid of the 200-pound dead body currently bleeding all over Seun's pink rug. Se-jin set the wrench down carefully inside the dry bathtub. He walked back into the bedroom and picked up his burner phone. The screen cast a harsh blue light on his face. He scrolled through his contacts. He had a lot of dirty numbers saved in this phone. Men who sold illegal guns. Men who moved stolen cars. But there was only one man he trusted to clean up a murder scene without asking a single question. He pressed a name and put the phone to his ear. It rang 4 times before a low, gravelly voice answered. It's 3 in the morning, Young, the voice said on the other end. This better be a very good reason. I have a problem, Elias, Se-jin said quietly, keeping his voice low so he wouldn't wake Seun. A big problem. I need a cleanup crew, fast and quiet. Elias sighed loudly through the phone. Where? South Side, an apartment building on 55th Street, Se-jin said. He looked over at Seun sleeping peacefully in the bed. There is a body inside apartment 3B. It's messy. Head trauma. Bleeding heavily on a rug. Did you do this? Elias asked. He sounded surprised. You are a lawyer, Young. You talk in courtrooms. You don't swing hammers. Just tell me if you can do it, Se-jin snapped. He was losing his patience. The adrenaline was wearing off and his muscles were screaming in pain. I can do it, Elias said calmly. But a full scrub of an apartment and a body disposal is going to cost you $50,000, cash, by tomorrow afternoon. Se-jin closed his eyes. $50,000. He had it in a safe at his office downtown, but going back to his office was incredibly dangerous right now. Chloe's father probably had goons watching the building waiting for him to show up. You will have the money, Se-jin promised. Just get over there right now, take the rug, clean the floor, make the body disappear. And Elias, if the cops somehow find out about this, I will give them your name. Don't threaten me, lawyer, Elias growled. I am sending 2 guys right now. The apartment will be empty before the sun comes up. The line went dead. Se-jin put the phone down on the nightstand. He rubbed his hands over his tired face. The plan was in motion. The body would disappear. The bloody wrench was safely hidden in the bathtub. The police had no reason to look for Seun. But Se-jin knew his old life was officially over. He could never go back to the law firm. He could never marry Chloe. He was a fugitive now, living in cheap motel rooms and looking over his shoulder for the rest of his life. He looked at Seun again. She shifted in her sleep, her face totally relaxed for the first time in 2 years. Se-jin laid down on the other bed in his wet pants and bare chest. He stared up at the ugly, water-stained ceiling. He had lost millions of dollars tonight. He had lost his career and his reputation. But as he listened to the rain hit the motel window, he finally felt like he was exactly where he belonged. The pale gray light of the Chicago morning crept through a tiny crack in the heavy motel curtains. The storm had finally stopped, but the sky was still a depressing, dark color. The light hit Se-jin right in the eyes. He groaned and tried to roll over, but a sharp pain shot up his spine. His back was completely stiff from sleeping on the cheap mattress in his damp clothes. He sat up slowly and rubbed his face. He felt dirty. He smelled like sweat and wet wool. He looked down at his hands. His right hand was cramping badly. The knuckles were bruised purple and swollen. They throbbed with a dull, heavy ache. It was a physical reminder of how hard he swung that metal wrench against a man's skull. He flexed his fingers, trying to work the pain out of the joints. A loud buzzing sound broke the quiet room. Se-jin grabbed his burner phone from the nightstand. The screen showed an unknown number. He pressed the green button and held the phone to his ear. He did not say a word. "The apartment is empty," Elias said on the other end. His voice was rough, like he had been smoking cigars all night. "It took 3 big bottles of bleach, Young." The guy bled like a stuck pig. "It soaked all the way through the cheap pink rug and into the floorboards. We had to rip the wood up and take it with us." Se-jin let out a slow breath. He felt a huge weight lift off his chest. The body was gone. The evidence was gone. "Did anyone see you?" "I am a professional," Elias growled. "Nobody saw a damn thing. The building was quiet. We rolled him up in a piece of plastic and took him down the fire escape. He is currently resting at the bottom of the river, wrapped in heavy iron chains. He is never coming back up." "Good," Se-jin said. He rubbed his swollen knuckles. "Thank you, Elias." "Don't thank me yet," Elias replied. "You owe me $50,000 in cash. I want it by 3 o'clock this afternoon. If you don't bring me the money, I know exactly where your fancy law office is. I will come collect it myself, and I will charge you interest." "You will have the cash by 3, Se-jin promised. "One more thing," Elias said. The tone of his voice changed. It sounded much more serious now. "Word on the street is that Arthur Park is looking for you. He put out a massive reward this morning. 50 grand to anyone who can tell him where you are." Se-jin felt his stomach drop. Arthur Park was his billionaire boss and Chloe's father. The man owned half the real estate in Chicago, and he owned most of the judges, too. "He is angry," Elias continued. "His guys are asking questions at all the private clubs. They said you embarrassed his daughter and stole a company car. If Arthur Park finds you before I do, you are a dead man, Young. Get me my money." The phone clicked and the line went dead. Se-jin tossed the burner phone onto the bed. He reached into his wet suit pants and pulled out his real cell phone. He turned the power back on. The screen lit up and immediately started shaking in his hand. The notifications poured in like a flood. He had 60 missed calls, 40 text messages. Most of them were from Chloe. He opened the first text message from her. It read, "You are a dead piece of shit. My father is going to ruin your entire life. You will never practice law again. I hope you die in the street with that ugly, crazy bitch." Se-jin stared at the screen. He did not feel sad. He did not miss her. He just felt trapped. He had spent 10 years building his reputation. He kissed Arthur Park's ass for 3 years just to get close to the family money. He did all their dirty legal work. He covered up their bribes and their tax fraud. Now all of that was gone. He was a hunted man. He threw the phone on the floor and crushed it under the heel of his heavy leather shoe. The glass screen shattered into 100 tiny pieces. "Se-jin," a soft voice whispered. He looked over at the other bed. Seun was awake. She was sitting up, pulling the ugly brown blanket tight against her chest. She looked terrified. The morning light made the cheap motel room look even worse. The wallpaper was peeling off the walls. The carpet had dark, nasty stains on it. To a girl who had not left her apartment in 2 years, this place was a nightmare. "I'm here," Se-jin said softly. He walked over to her bed and sat on the edge. "How did you sleep?" "I had bad dreams," she murmured. Her eyes darted around the small room, looking at the dirty walls. "I dreamed the man with the belt came back. He was standing at the end of the bed laughing at me. I tried to scream, but nothing came out." Se-jin reached out and stroked her natural hair. It was dry now, sticking up in soft, wild curls. "It was just a dream. He is gone, Seun. I promise you, he is never coming back. I handled it." She looked at his face. She studied his dark eyes. She always knew when he was hiding something. "What are we going to do now? We can't stay here forever. We don't have any money. I don't have any clothes." "I am going to fix it," Se-jin said. He kept his voice completely confident. He needed her to believe he was in control. "I have a lot of cash locked in a safe at my office downtown. I am going to go get it. Then, I am going to buy us a decent car, and we are going to drive out of Chicago. We will go somewhere quiet. Somewhere safe with a big locked door where nobody can ever bother you again." Seun's breathing suddenly got faster. Her chest heaved up and down under the blanket. She reached out and grabbed his arm with both hands. Her grip was insanely tight. "You are leaving? No, no, Se-jin, you can't leave me here. You can't leave me alone in this dirty room." "Hey, look at me," he ordered. He grabbed her shoulders and squeezed them hard. "Stop panicking. Look right at my eyes." She forced herself to look at him. Her eyes were wide and full of pure panic. "If you walk out that door, you won't come back. You left me before. You packed your bags and you left me alone in that apartment." The guilt hit Se-jin right in the teeth. She was right. He did leave her. He abandoned her when she was sick and scared because he wanted an easier life. He deserved her anger. He deserved her fear. "I was a stupid, selfish prick," Se-jin said. His voice was low and harsh. He was angry at himself. "I wanted money more than I wanted to deal with your problems. But I am telling you right now, I threw all of that away last night. I threw away my job. I threw away millions of dollars. I am a wanted criminal because I chose you. Do you understand me? I am not going to abandon you ever again. We are tied together now. If you sink, I sink." Seun stared at him. A single tear rolled down her brown cheek. She slowly let go of his arm. "How long will you be gone?" "A few hours," Se-jin said. He stood up from the bed. He walked over to the bathroom and grabbed his ruined white dress shirt from the floor. He put it on over his undershirt. The cuffs were still stained with the dark, dried blood of the man he killed. He rolled the sleeves up to his elbows to hide the mess. He grabbed his wet suit jacket and put it on. It smelled terrible. He looked like a homeless drunk, not a top-tier defense attorney. "I need you to listen to me very carefully," Se-jin said as he walked back to the front door. "You are going to lock this door behind me. You slide the metal chain into the slot. You do not open this door for anyone. Not for the maid, not for the motel manager. If the building catches on fire, you stay inside until I come back. Do you understand?" "Yes," Seun whispered. She was trembling again. She pulled her knees up to her chest. "Do not go into the bathroom," Se-jin added. His voice got slightly colder. "I left something in the bathtub. Do not touch it. Do not even look at it." Seun nodded slowly. She knew better than to ask questions. She lived in a dark world of fear, but she knew Se-jin operated in a world of violence and lies. She trusted him because she had no other choice. "I will be back before lunch," Se-jin said. He opened the door. The cold morning air rushed into the room. He stepped out onto the concrete walkway and pulled the heavy door shut. He waited outside until he heard the deadbolt click and the metal chains slide into place. He turned around and walked across the bumpy parking lot. The puddles from last night's storm were still deep and muddy. He kept his head down, watching his ruined leather shoes splash through the dirty water. He walked into the motel lobby. The bell on the door rang loudly. The lobby smelled like stale donuts and cheap coffee. Marcus, the skinny motel manager with the neck tattoos, was wiping the counter with a dirty rag. He looked up when Se-jin walked in. Marcus let out a low whistle. "Damn, Mr. Young, you look like hell. You look worse in the daylight than you did last night." "I need a favor, Marcus," Se-jin said. He walked right up to the front desk. He leaned his elbows on the counter. "I need to go downtown, but I cannot take a cab and I cannot take a bus. I need a car, something quiet, something nobody will look at twice." Marcus stopped wiping the counter. He threw the dirty rag into a sink behind him. He looked out the window at the empty parking lot, then back at Se-jin. "You are in deep shit, aren't you? The word on the street is moving fast this morning. Guys are saying Arthur Park is offering 50 large for your head." Se-jin did not flinch. "Are you going to try and collect that money, Marcus?" Marcus scoffed and shook his head. "Hell no. You kept me out of a concrete box, Mr. Young. I don't forget debts. Park's money is dirty anyway. But you can't go downtown looking like a bloody zombie. You stick out too much." "Just get me a car," Se-jin demanded. He was losing his patience. The clock was ticking. He had to get $50,000 to Elias by 3 o'clock, or Elias would turn him over to Park's men. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a set of keys with a cheap plastic Chicago Bulls keychain. He tossed them onto the counter. "It's an old blue Honda Civic parked around the back near the dumpsters. It runs fine, but the heater is broken. The plates are registered to a dead guy in Ohio. Nobody is going to look twice at it." Se-jin grabbed the keys. "Thank you, I will bring it back in a few hours." "Wait," Marcus said. He reached under the counter and pulled out a faded black baseball cap. It had a White Sox logo on the front. He tossed it to Se-jin. "Put that on. Pull it down low over your eyes. There are cameras on every street corner downtown. Arthur Park owns the private security companies that run those cameras. If they scan your face, his goons will be on you in 5 minutes." Se-jin caught the hat. He put it on his head and pulled the brim down low, hiding his dark eyes and his bruised face. He looked at his reflection in the lobby window. He looked like a completely different person. He looked like a thug. He liked it. "Keep an eye on room 114, Se-jin said to Marcus before he turned to leave. "If anyone knocks on that door while I am gone, you call me immediately. If anyone tries to go inside, you shoot them." Marcus swallowed hard and nodded. "I got you, Mr. Young. Be careful out there." Se-jin walked out of the lobby. The cold wind bit at his face. He walked around the back of the building, past the smelly green dumpsters. He found the old blue Honda Civic sitting in the corner. It was covered in dirt and rust spots. It was the perfect invisible car. He unlocked the door and got into the driver's seat. The inside of the car smelled like old fast food and cigarettes. He put the key in the ignition and turned it. The engine coughed loudly, sputtered twice, and finally roared to life. Se-jin put the car in gear and pulled out of the parking lot. He drove toward the highway, heading straight for the shiny, massive glass buildings of downtown Chicago. He was driving right back into the lion's den. He was going to walk right into Arthur Park's territory, break into his own law firm, and steal his own money. If he made one wrong move, he was a dead man. If a security guard recognized him, he would end up in the bottom of the river right next to the building manager he killed last night. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel. His bruised knuckles screamed in pain, but he ignored it. He had to survive. He had to get the money. Seun was waiting for him, locked in that dirty room, trusting him to keep his promise.